Welcome to In the Chute. I'm Brandon. He's Calen. I'm the dad. He's a kid. He's going to throw something at me and hopefully I'll answer it right or give you some opinion one way or another. What do you got, Calen?
Okay, so we talk about cattle genetics and line breeding a lot in this forum, and I want to ask, how do you keep from inbreeding or interbreeding within the program? We use a lot of the same bulls, a lot of the same cows. For example, people reference a famous cow amongst us, which is Ears. How do you keep her from getting bred by a son bull or a similarly related bull, so that the line breeding doesn't result in any sort of crisscross of the same genetics? Because we have seen personally, we have seen some herds where there's a lot of interbreeding and it results in just not some good instances, both health wise or just mentally. You can see the cows, it's just not quite there. It's just a little weird anyway. But what are some of the ways we go about on the ranch of making sure that we stick to specific line breeding and we don't interbreed amongst the various herds that you manage amongst everybody on the ranch?
Well, we never save our own bulls.
Yeah.
That's one. I mean, we just don't do that.
We do, but for eating.
Yeah, if you want to, yeah, grass fed, grain finished virgin bull, which is a big bang for your buck if you like leaner meat, then we'll do that, but they don't breed. Um, we buy outside bulls, buy from people who raise bulls, and watch the genetics, the EPDs, or the expected progeny differences. They're never guaranteed, but and I also watch the different lines, the names, where that bull come from, who their sires were, their grandsires, great grandsires, things like that. So um, we want to make sure that we are not getting some bottleneck genetics or line breeding of any way. So we do that, use different producers, but different producers also have some of the same lines, depending on some of the really good bulls, some of the good progeny that comes down from some really good bulls. So I really watch those, watch their lineage, their background, and then you can always build in a little heterosis with a different breed, say mix them with a Simmental bull or part Simmental, half Simmental, get some heterosis that way, and then make sure you're just not breeding your own stuff. We just don't do that.
Yeah,
That's
and
a
then
short answer, easy answer.
how would if somebody has a larger operation, and maybe we also know some people that they've got two or three separate ranches. They've got a pretty good business for themselves. They've diversified enough that they can support multiple ranches as a business. So how would you manage the genetics on that? Could you potentially swap the bulls from one ranch to another and kind of diversify that way? And then once you're done with the bulls, either butcher them or sell them off to somebody else as a proven bull, or for their instance too, they might even sell the semen off that bull and
Right.
just recoup that over time.
Right. Just depending on the how good the bull is, the genetics there. The bull may never see a cow. They may just collect semen off of him strictly. That's it.
Right.
But yeah, you can swap your bulls around. Now, one thing that we do is we will save our heifers, certain heifers for replacement stock. And if we have a young bull that's out of breeding a yearling heifer or 2-year-old heifer, then their progeny can't be mixed with that bull because they, may be the father to them. So I keep records. We watch and make sure that we don't mix these bulls with their own daughters. So that could happen. That would be about the only thing that could happen on our end. Some of the other ranches, yeah, you could certainly swap those bulls, but they also can turn those bulls over or tend to turn them over a lot more too, which uh, by turn them over, I mean only have them for several years at one spot, then take them to another ranch where they don't have the same progeny, and you just keep them off completely different ranches. Then they may buy some outside cows. That can happen as well. Or a lot of times they're AIing, and so they know exactly what bull went with that cow, and then they can really track their genetics that way instead of saying, oh, this group of cows like we have went with this or these two bulls or three bulls, whatever we've got them with. We might have four bulls with a larger bunch. So it could be the draw, luck of the draw on any one of those. You got a 25% chance that that bull can have a daughter. So then we don't breed those heifers as they come up to anything that would have been their father in that group. They'll be into a separate herd, and then with some fresh bulls or young bulls, heifer bulls that have not been exposed to those heifers' mothers at all. So you can manage it that way. You know, there's all kinds of different ways you can do that. You can um, separate a certain bull which doesn't breed any cows if they're collecting semen on them and they're AIing. You know, you could breed 100 cows from him and never have to worry about it, because then the next time those daughters out of them, if they're kept as replacement heifers, so you got 50% of them or 50 head out of that 100, they would just be bred to a different bull, AI'd to a different bull. That's their program doing AIing. And it works the same way, whether you put that bull in there live or not. Now you've got a group of bulls that you just would not expose the daughters to. It's all
And
about record keeping, keeping track.
well, and that's my next point too, is to an extent, having a bigger herd, it's easier to do that because then you have more options for the bulls to go to. How difficult is it? We've got only a herd of roughly right now about 85 total head. How difficult is that managing all the bulls with because we've got like what, three total herds right now that you manage,
It
based
basically,
off of
yeah,
age and where they're
right.
at viability wise for actually producing calves. So how difficult is it managing those bulls with the proper cows and the heifers that they need to go to?
It's not bad because I keep them separated. The older bulls, larger bulls on the older cows, and then some of these heifer bulls go on to the replacement stock that have not been out of them anyway. So I'm just putting those heifer bulls with some of the heifers that come from the older cows and some of these the bigger bulls. So it's just same thing. It's like having three different ranches only on a microcosm. They're on the same place. It's really what it is. You're just keeping track, and we're breeding these bulls. We're pasture breeding. We're not doing any AIing. So it's all about
Yeah.
keeping track of what bull goes in, or what bulls go in with what herd, and then you just know that you can't use those bulls on any of the progeny, and you literally just you keep records of it, keep track.
When you start to see undesirable outcomes come out in calves or heifers, and you start to see that in your breeding program, how fast is it before you can diagnose whether it's the heifer or the bull or the cow or the bull, and what is your correction to that?
Well, that's a good question, and it's something that you have to look at. If you got multiple the same issues out of a variety of cows, and the cow's not been the problem, then there's probably a good chance it's your bull. Now it's narrowing it down to which bull, and it's surprising how some of these calves look like the bulls. You know, they
Hmm.
have some of the same phenotype or similar phenotype, and you can kind of tell who it is. And you're just watching your animals as they mature. And if you've got a bull problem, uh, they go to Walmart. It's as simple as that. You know, or if you got a
Yeah.
cow problem, then she goes too. She meets the same fate because you don't want to breed that into your herd. You want to eliminate that any undesirable traits.
And then final question, what have been some of the more common undesirable traits that you've seen in probably the last 10 years that you have said these are massive red flags, or they are like hard line in the sand, you will not cross. You see that happen, you're like, nope, that's done. We're moving on.
Yeah, bad feet. That's
Mhm.
that's a that's a big one. You got to have decent feet on your animals, and that's really the biggest, most giant one. A little bit of craziness. They're a little bit hot
Screw
or just
loose.
goofy. Yeah, get rid of them. Hostile or overly protective. I don't mind a cow that's overly protective because she's doing what she's supposed to do.
Or
But when
be
that
like one of
calf is a
Braden's
little
annotations of mean moms.
Yeah, exactly. One of the mean mobs. Just be careful when you're tagging them. And generally, as those calves get a little older, those cows will settle right down. So
Mhm.
it's not a problem of you got a cow that's just mad all the time. She's just protecting her calf, and that's what you want, some good maternal instinct.
Okay.
Yeah, that's really some of the other things are some of the phenotype. Well, what is it? What are they looking like? Are they getting short bodied? Are they getting real thin on the hip? we like a long backed blocky cow. And if you start to get some consistent variation from that, then you got to look at what your cow is, who she's been exposed to. Is it the cow or is it some of the bulls or a particular bull? And weed them out that way. So if they start to get too large a cow, can be inefficient. Too small a cow doesn't raise as big a calf. So you want to kind of maintain it. I like a little bit larger cow if we can. I don't mind, if we've got the grass to feed them, that's not a problem. I don't want too small of an animal. Yeah, I mean that there's
Right.
no money in that. So a moderate size is what most people want. So moderate's a little larger boned animal.
Well, and the feet issue is something that's interesting too, because you even talked to somebody who you purchased bulls from, I think, like a
Yeah,
year or two ago,
yeah,
and he said specifically in reds, which we have, they are consistently known for bad feet, and that's the
yep,
one thing that we've had to look out for.
yep,
We've had pretty good dispositions for the most part, save
yeah,
for, the exception here or there, but it's always been in the past 10, 15 years, it's been those darn feet, trying to get
yeah,
that under control.
yeah. And I asked him, I said, "What do you do about your your cattle with bad feet?" And he said, "They cut their heads off."
Yeah,
So
just the
it's
way
the
it
same
is.
answer. They go to slaughter. That's
Yeah.
what you got to get those genetics out of there. Get rid of them.
Well, that is cattle genetics and some of our line breeding and all the extra stuff that goes with that. So with that, we'll take that conversation and put it out to pasture.